In today's video, we're going to be adding shading when pattern paper piecing. Hi, my name is Stacy. I hope you're inspired to create today, whether it's using the products or techniques that I'm using in this video, or just pulling out your supplies from your crafty stash. Let's get started. Let's jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and stamp up this cute little bunny image, which is called Raggedy Bunny. This is from Sweet Miss Daisy Designs, which is Anna Wight's company. And we're going to go ahead and stamp her with some Mento London Fog ink so that she has a lighter outline on some pattern paper. I just made sure that her outfit was stamped on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp her in that same ink on some Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And then I'm taking that pattern paper, and I've got my Sandy Allnock hex chart there, and I'm finding markers that are very similar so that I can shade and give this outfit a little bit of dimension. Since I'm going to be shading the image and trying to give her some dimension, I wanted to make sure that my paper piecing was the same. So when you use markers on pattern paper, they're always going to appear darker and dry lighter because you're going to have the moisture from the ink in the paper, and it'll make it look darker, but it'll dry back. So it's a good idea if you want to test this on a piece of the scrap pattern paper to see what your colors are going to turn out like once the ink dries. And then I'm just fussy cutting right on the line, just the overall portion of the dress. And then I'm just holding it up to my image there, making sure that it's going to be okay and fit properly. And then I'm using my Copic marker that I used for shading to go around the edges. Since I don't have a black outline, I didn't use a black pen, so I'm using my Copic to take away that white portion from the fussy cutting. That way it blends in a little bit better. There's no harsh white border or from the side of the cardstock. And then I'm just using those same markers, and I think I bring in one a little bit darker to shade the rest of her outfit. Isn't this a darling little image? I was so excited that I finally placed my order and that they arrived. I've been looking forward to receiving these and creating with them. There's a couple of times I went to order and she was out of stock. She's super popular. But she was in stock and I got her. And then I'm just doing a a center highlight, so I'm shading from each side of the outfit. And I'm holding that up and making sure that I like the way that it looks together. And then I went in and used a darker R marker for the hearts. They're not going to show up much because I did stamp in that lighter ink, but they're there, so I wanted to make sure I added color. And then I'm just putting a little bit darker R marker on the buttons there, the little heart and the two little buttons there on her collar. And then I'm taking this, the lightest marker that I had used for the shading, and I'm just coloring around the edges of that dress. So if any of it peeks out, that it doesn't show any the white edges if I miscut the fussy cutting at all. And then I'm just going to go in and shade this little bunny. And this is a pretty small image. It doesn't have a whole lot of area for shading, so you could use one color for that. Or you could use two. Two probably would have been enough. I believe I used 3, which, it probably shows up, but 2 would have been just fine as well. And that same thing, I'm just doing a center shade, so I'm putting, or center highlight, so I'm shading on both sides. And then I'm going to do the inside of the ears coming up, and those inside of those ears, I'm going to be using the same E markers, except I'm going to go ahead and go with a couple of shades up. And I believe I only used 2 for the inside of the ears because it's such a small space. But I did want there to be some shading. And I just used the middle tone for the nose. And I keep putting that paper piecing up, making sure that I like the way that it looks together. And then I just brought in I believe a warm gray marker, and just put a little bit of shading on that lace that's going to pop out from below her little overalls. And I'm using the same E markers, the same family, and I just went up a couple of colors for her little shoes. And then I thought I'd bring in some green since the pattern paper has some green for her leggings. And I believe the other stripes I do in the same E markers as the bunny. I just stayed with the lightest ones. And then I brought in a darker R marker because I wanted the little buttons to pop a bit more. And there I am going to glue that on. Look at how cute. So cute, so sweet. Then I just use a big acrylic block to weight it down. And there's my pattern paper I'm going to use for the background, and I brought in some cardstock, and I'm trying to match it, that yellow to the yellow in the flowers on the dress. And then I used those pierced dies from Sizzix, and I'm just layering those up. And I brought in some like taupey paper to match the bunny. And then I'm going to use some of these stamps, and if I had thought about it first, I would have just done that on that center piece, the pattern paper, but I decided I wanted to add a little bit of like distressing grunge, some background, because that pattern paper has that in it, but I wanted to add more. So I'm just going to take a post-it note and mask off the portion where I don't want the ink to get. And then I'm not going to use this completely how it is. I'm going to kind of wipe some of the ink away so that end portion of that border is not crisp. I want it to kind of fade off, look a little bit more distressed and worn. So I just used a paper towel to wipe off some of the ink. And then I'm bringing, this stamp set is called Correspondence Bits, and it's great for adding some texture. And so what I'm doing is masking off those areas too, and I'm not gonna worry about the stamp being crisp. So most of them I don't think I stamp more than once, and I'm not even concerned about inking that stamp up really well because I do want it to be distressed. And I'm just putting my image back there and putting the little bunny there, and I'm using her as I lay things out because I want to see how she's going to lay over the top and make sure everything's kind of spaced out. So I'm just using different bits and pieces from that. And then I'll also mask down on that bottom again. I don't want it to get on those borders, on those other, what is that? A mat, the way I matted those. And I'm liking that. And then I noticed this heart in the stamp set, and I decided I wanted to use that up in the top corner there. And those are some pierced hearts from Sizzix. They go really well with those pierced rectangle dies. And I'm just taking a pink cardstock that was very similar to what I used in the coloring, and I took some brown ink that I had from Stampin' Up. Just use whatever matches your papers, and I wanted to make it look more vintage and old, so I wanted it to match the rest of the card, so I did that with the heart, and then I'm doing it with the rest of the card. And I used some little flowers from another stamp set from Anna. All of her images work really well together. It's Henny and Penny stamp set, and I used a little cluster of roses to add to underneath that sentiment to fill in that void there. And I'm just going to glue her down, and then I'm going to attach it to my card base here. And I added some pearls, and here she is. Isn't it sweet? I just love her images. I can't wait to play around more. And I'm just showing you here the stamp sets that I used. If you guys haven't been over to Anna's shop, go on over. She has an Etsy shop. I'll link her down below, and I'll link her channel. Also, I'm going to be putting this up for Jill Norwood's Saturday Morning Makes. Go on over to Jill's channel. I'll put all the information for this open collaboration. And I'll see you guys next time. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Bye.